What if I told you that the most beautiful chapter of your life has not even been written yet? What if I told you that 60 is not the end of your story, but the bold beginning of the greatest page you will ever turn? At 60, the world often whispers, "It's too late." Too late to dream, too late to change, too late to love, too late to begin again. But let me tell you something that will shake your soul. 60 is not the end of the road. It is the crown of the mountain. You have climbed through storms, stumbled through valleys, carried burdens heavier than most could imagine, and yet you stand. And standing at 60 means you carry the wisdom of decades, the scars of survival, and the fire of resilience. This is why 60 is the perfect age to start over, because you no longer chase approval, you no longer fear the world's judgment, and you know now that freedom is not in youth, but in truth. So, stay with me, because by the end of this journey, you will see that 60 is not the sunset, it is the sunrise your soul has been waiting for. When we are young, life teaches us to bow our heads toward the applause of others. From our earliest days, we are measured, graded, and judged by the voices around us. A child longs for a parent's nod, a student for a teacher's praise, a worker for a supervisor's approval. The world tells us that worth is found in gold stars, in promotions, in the clapping of hands that are not our own. We learn to bend, to mold, to contort our spirits into shapes that please the crowd. But what we are rarely told is that this applause is fleeting, and the cost of chasing it is the slow erosion of our truth. At 60, something shifts. It does not arrive with the turning of the calendar or the lighting of candles on a cake. It comes quietly, like a sunrise after a long night. You wake one day and realize that the voices you once thought were so loud are nothing more than whispers carried by the wind. You see that the applause you chased could never fill the silence of your heart. And in that moment, you feel a freedom that only time and trial can give. This freedom is the release from the weight of approval. It is a liberation that youth rarely knows. For too many years, we dress ourselves in masks, pretending to be smaller or greater, louder or softer, all depending on what the world demands. At 60, you have worn enough masks to know they suffocate the soul. And when you finally remove them, what remains is not emptiness. It is you, raw and radiant, ready to live without chains. Living for approval is a hunger that never ends. No matter how much you receive, it leaves you emptier still. But living for truth is a feast. It nourishes you, strengthens you, and allows you to walk into every room with your shoulders high and your heart unshaken. When you reach 60, you have given enough, proven enough, carried enough to finally say, I do not need your permission to exist. I do not need your clapping hands to confirm my worth. I am here, and that is enough. Think of the years when you bit your tongue instead of speaking your truth. Think of the hours you spent rehearsing yourself into acceptability. Think of the choices you made not because they were yours, but because you feared disappointing others. That is the tax of living under the weight of approval. It steals time, energy, and peace. But at 60, you begin to reclaim it. You see that the people you once tried so hard to please are often too busy wrestling with their own shadows to truly notice you. And even if they do notice, their opinion no longer defines your path. Starting over at 60 means that for the first time in decades, you are free to ask yourself, not them, what do I want? What fills me? What excites me? What gives me peace when I lay my head down at night? These are questions that can only be asked when you stop bending beneath the weight of approval. And when you ask them honestly, the answers will set you on a path more beautiful than any you've known before. There is a tenderness in this kind of freedom. It does not make you hard or bitter. It makes you compassionate because you finally understand that everyone, young and old, walks through life craving acceptance. But you also understand that the greatest gift you can give is not to teach them to chase it, but to show them how to stand without it. When you live unshackled by approval, you give silent permission to others to do the same. Your authenticity becomes a lighthouse for the weary souls still wandering in the dark. The freedom of 60 is not loud rebellion. It is calm authority. You no longer need to argue, prove, or defend. Your presence itself becomes proof. You do not need to shout your worth. It is in your eyes, in your steps, in the way you hold yourself when you walk into a room. You carry the weight of your years not as a burden, but as a crown. Approval is no longer your master. Truth is, consider this, every great change in history was born not from those who sought approval, but from those who dared to live beyond it. The artists who painted against tradition, the leaders who spoke against injustice, the mothers and fathers who chose love over expectation, all of them stepped out of line, and in doing so, they became free. You too, at 60, are invited to step out of line. You are invited to live in a way that feels like breathing after holding your breath for far too long. The approval you thought you needed will always come and go. Some days people will sing your praises, other days they will doubt your choices. But none of that changes the quiet truth of who you are. At 60, you see that clearly. You see that a life lived chasing applause is a life spent running in circles. But a life lived for truth moves in a straight line toward peace. This is why 60 is the perfect age to start over, because you are no longer tempted by every cheer, no longer broken by every criticism. You are steady, rooted, unshaken. You can create not for validation, but for joy. You can love not for security, but for connection. You can live not for acceptance, but for freedom. And once you taste this freedom, you will never again trade it for approval's empty reward. So stand tall, speak your truth. Wear your age not as a shackle, but as a medal earned in battle. 60 is not the time to shrink into silence. It is the time to let your authentic voice rise, because now you know, with every fiber of your being, that the only approval you ever truly needed was your own. Wisdom is not taught in classrooms alone, nor does it flow only from books. Wisdom is carved into the human spirit through seasons of living. It is etched by the laughter that carried you through joy and the tears that baptized you in grief. It is sculpted in silence, in waiting, in patience you never asked to learn but were forced to practice. Wisdom is not given, it is gathered, and gathering it takes years. This is why, at 60, you hold something priceless, something no bank can store, no thief can steal, no market can crash. You hold wisdom. When you are young, you often mistake information for wisdom. The world fills your head with numbers, facts, and rules, and you think that knowing is the same as understanding. But time teaches you otherwise. A book can tell you how to love, but only a broken heart can show you its depths. A teacher can outline the path of success, but only failure can reveal the grit it demands. At 60, you have walked through both loss and triumph, and in doing so, you have gathered a treasure far greater than youth's energy. You hold the currency of insight, and that is wealth beyond imagination. This currency changes how you see the world. When you were younger, you chased possessions thinking they would anchor your worth. A larger house, a faster car, a louder applause. But wisdom reveals that possessions decay, status fades, and applause is as temporary as an echo in the mountains. What remains, what cannot be taken, is the truth you've learned along the way. You know the difference between what glitters and what matters. You know that peace outweighs profit, that health is richer than gold, and that love is the only investment that multiplies even when everything else falls apart. At 60, you can start over not as a student fumbling through life's lessons, but as a sage carrying the knowledge of years. You don't need to rush because you've already seen how haste leads to regret. You don't need to fear because you faced storms and discovered you were stronger than the winds that tried to tear you down. You don't need to beg for direction because your intuition, sharpened by experience, is now the compass you can trust. Wisdom at this age is not a quiet whisper. It is a steady voice within, guiding you to what matters most. Think of the times in your past when you thought a closed door was the end of everything. A lost job, a broken relationship, a missed opportunity. In youth, it feels like destruction. But with wisdom, you know better. You know that every ending carried within it the seed of a new beginning. You know that rejection often disguised protection. You know that sometimes the very thing you cried for not receiving was the thing that would have harmed you had it been given. Wisdom turns wounds into teachers, and at 60, you are rich with such lessons. There is a calmness that comes with this kind of wealth. While the young rush to prove themselves, while the restless scramble for recognition, you can sit still and know that nothing real is ever lost. You can smile at failure because you see it not as defeat, but as redirection. You can look at success not as a crown, but as a stepping stone. Wisdom is perspective, and perspective is power. It allows you to walk into your new beginning with both eyes open, unafraid of what lies ahead. When you carry wisdom, you no longer trade your energy for things that have no return. You do not waste your soul trying to impress those who will never understand you. You do not waste your time on battles that drain your spirit. Instead, you invest in what nourishes you, in kindness, in learning, in connections that bring life to your days. This is the economy of wisdom. Every act of love grows interest. Every act of gratitude multiplies. Every moment of presence compounds into joy that no market can shake. Wisdom also grants you the gift of teaching. Your story is not yours alone. It is a lantern for those walking the same roads you once stumbled down. At 60, you can start over not only for yourself, but as a guide for those who need your light. When you share your lessons, when you show your scars, when you speak truth without pretense, you become a living book of hope for someone who thinks they cannot survive what you have already overcome. That is wealth worth more than gold, the power to inspire, to heal, to remind others that they are not alone. This currency of wisdom also transforms your relationship with yourself. You no longer punish yourself for mistakes because you see that every mistake was a teacher in disguise. You no longer envy others because you understand that every path has its storms. You no longer fear aging because you know that years do not take away, they give. They give you clarity, patience, resilience, and depth. At 60, you look in the mirror, and instead of seeing what time has taken, you see what time has given. You see wisdom in your eyes, courage in your stance, and stories written into the lines on your face. And what a gift it is to start over with this wealth. Imagine beginning not with empty hands, but with hands full of lessons, truths, and insights. Imagine choosing not blindly, but with discernment. Imagine living not to accumulate, but to contribute. This is the advantage of 60. You are no longer rich in youth's illusions. You are rich in wisdom's reality. And reality is a far better place to build a new life. So many fear aging as a decline, but in truth, it is an ascension. You rise from the illusions that once trapped you. You ascend above the noise of shallow opinions. You see the horizon with clarity, and with each step forward, you spend the currency of wisdom in the only way it was meant to be spent, in living fully, freely, and fearlessly. Because wisdom once earned was never meant to be stored away, it was meant to be lived. There comes a time in every life when the mask grows too heavy to carry. In youth, the world teaches us to wear disguises, to bend ourselves into acceptable shapes, to mute the fire of our souls so that others are not startled by its brightness. We are taught to perform instead of to live, to adjust instead of to shine. And though these masks may win us approval, they steal something far more precious, the chance to live as ourselves. But at 60, the performance begins to lose its power. You have worn the costumes long enough to see that they do not fit, and you have spoken the rehearsed lines long enough to hear the hollowness echo back to you. Authenticity, living as you truly are, calls to you like a voice rising from deep within the marrow of your being. And to answer that call requires courage, for the world is not always kind to truth-tellers. Yet courage is the gift of your years. You have faced storms and survived. You have carried burdens and endured. And now you possess the strength to live in a way that is no longer borrowed, but fully, unapologetically your own. Authenticity is not about perfection, it is about presence. It is the willingness to show up as you are, scars and all, without apology. It is the courage to say, this is who I am, this is my truth, this is my story. When you are younger, you hide these things because you fear rejection. You smooth out the rough edges of your personality, cover the wounds of your heart, silence the words that might offend. But at 60, you understand something profound. The people who truly love you do not need you to be perfect. They need you to be real. And the people who demand perfection never truly loved you at all. Living authentically is an act of rebellion in a world that thrives on imitation. From advertisements to social media, you are told every day who you should be, what you should buy, how you should look, and even how you should feel. To stand against that tide and declare, I will live as myself, requires a bravery far greater than climbing any mountain or crossing any sea. Because authenticity strips away the shield of conformity, leaving you visible, vulnerable, and raw. And yet, paradoxically, that very vulnerability becomes your strength. It is the soil from which true connection grows. At 60, courage takes a new form. It is not the loud, reckless bravery of youth, but the steady, unshakable courage of one who has lived through much and fears little. You no longer have to prove yourself through daring feats or empty risks. Your courage lies in being true to yourself, even if it costs you comfort, even if it costs you company, even if it costs you approval. Because you have learned that the only thing worse than losing people is losing yourself in the effort to keep them. Living authentically also means embracing your story, the entire story, not just the polished chapters. The mistakes, the heartbreaks, the regrets, the failures, these are not stains on your character. They are proof of your humanity. To hide them is to deny the very experiences that gave you depth. But to share them, to live openly with them, is to claim the fullness of who you are. Authenticity means standing tall in the truth of your past while still reaching forward into the light of your future. It is not shame, it is liberation. The courage to live authentically also transforms your relationships. When you are real, you invite others to be real as well. Your honesty becomes a safe haven where others can drop their masks. Conversations deepen, connections strengthen, and love becomes something rooted not in performance, but in truth. At 60, you no longer need the shallow approval of the many. You crave instead the deep, soul-filling presence of the few who see you as you are and love you still. This shift is the fruit of authenticity. Fewer but richer connections, quieter but truer love. To live authentically at 60 is also to honor your desires. Too often, you may have silenced them for duty, responsibility, or expectation. You told yourself there was no time, no money, no permission to follow the call of your heart. But the courage to live authentically whispers that it is never too late. If your soul longs to paint, paint. If your heart aches to write, write. If your spirit yearns to travel, travel. If your body craves rest, then rest. These are not luxuries, they are necessities for a life lived in truth. And what is courage if not the decision to honor the truth even when it feels risky? At 60, risk no longer frightens you as it once did, because you understand that the greatest risk is not failing, it is never trying at all. You understand that regret is heavier than fear, and authenticity frees you from carrying that weight into the future. You see clearly that you cannot relive your 20s, nor would you want to, but you can live your 60s with a fullness that makes those younger years seem like rehearsal. The world may look at 60 and whisper, slowing down, but authenticity laughs at such small visions. Authenticity says, now I live. Now I write my own rules, not because I am reckless, but because I am wise enough to know that rules without truth are cages. Now I speak my truth, not to offend, but because silence would be a betrayal to my own soul. Now I love deeply, not because I fear being alone, but because I have finally learned to love myself. This is the courage of authenticity, the courage to look in the mirror and recognize yourself, to speak and hear your own voice, to walk and see your own footprints on the path. It is the courage to stop asking, who do they want me to be, and start asking, who have I always been beneath the noise? And once you answer that question honestly, there is no turning back. Authenticity does not promise ease, but it does promise freedom. And freedom at 60 is the most sacred gift you can give yourself. For you have carried too much, hidden too much, and dimmed your light too long. Now is the time to burn brightly, courageously, and authentically, for the world does not need another imitation. It needs the brilliance of you as you are, unmasked and unafraid. There is a moment in life when you realize that time is not endless. In youth, the hours stretch like wide open skies, the days seem abundant, and the years roll forward without much thought. You waste mornings on worries that will not matter, evenings on distractions that will not last, and whole seasons chasing things that leave your soul hollow. You believe there will always be another chance, another tomorrow, another day to finally begin living. But when 60 arrives, time begins to speak with a different voice. It is no longer a vague backdrop to your days. It becomes a sacred presence, a treasure to be honored, a gift you no longer take for granted. At 60, you have witnessed how swiftly the decades pass. You remember being 20 as if it were yesterday, 30 as if it were just this morning, 40 as if it were only a dream you barely woke from. The milestones you once thought so far away arrived and vanished with startling speed. And in that realization comes a new reverence for time itself. You begin to treat it not as something to be spent carelessly, but as something holy, to be cherished with intention. Every sunrise feels different now. It is not just light spilling over the horizon, it is an invitation. Each dawn whispers, you are still here, you still have breath, you still have a chance. And each evening, when the sun folds itself back into the earth, you feel the weight of gratitude, knowing that another day has been lived and will never come again. Time is precious because it cannot be stored, cannot be paused, cannot be bargained with. Once a moment passes, it is gone forever. And that is what makes each one sacred. When you are young, you often trade your time for approval, for ambition, for possessions that rust and crumble. But at 60, you see clearly that time is the only true wealth. Money can be regained, possessions can be replaced, but no amount of effort or power can buy back a single minute once it has slipped away. And so, starting over at 60 means guarding your time like a jewel. You no longer give it freely to what does not nourish your spirit. You no longer squander it on people who drain your energy or pursuits that offer nothing in return. You understand that saying yes to one thing is saying no to something else, and you choose with care. This reverence for time also brings a sweetness to your days. You notice things you once overlooked, the way the morning air feels against your skin, the sound of laughter echoing across a room, the comfort of silence shared with someone you love. You pause to listen to the birds outside your window. You allow yourself to linger over a cup of tea. You watch the rain not as an inconvenience, but as a symphony falling from the sky. Time becomes precious because you finally slow down enough to experience it fully. You no longer rush from moment to moment, you inhabit them. At 60, starting over also means reevaluating how you wish to spend the time ahead. You cannot change the years behind you, but you can shape the years before you with greater wisdom. You ask yourself, what truly matters now? What brings me joy? What gives my life meaning? These questions are not born from fear of time running out, but from reverence for the time still in your hands. You know now that you cannot do everything, but you also know you do not need to. What matters is not how much you fill your days with, but what you fill them with. Quality outweighs quantity. Meaning outweighs busyness. Presence outweighs productivity. This sacred view of time also changes your relationships. You no longer cling to people who diminish your spirit because you recognize that every hour spent with them is an hour lost forever. You no longer tolerate conversations that go nowhere, arguments that solve nothing, or gatherings that leave you emptier than before. Instead, you seek out souls who lift you, voices that inspire you, and connections that fill your heart with warmth. You choose love, laughter, and authenticity because you know your time is too precious to waste on anything less. And what of your dreams? At 60, time does not tell you to stop dreaming. It tells you to dream with urgency. If there is a book within you, write it. If there is a place you long to see, go there. If there is a skill you ache to learn, begin. No one knows how many days remain, and that uncertainty is not a burden. It is a call to action. The sacredness of time compels you to live now, not later, to take risks, not because you are reckless, but because you understand that waiting forever means never beginning at all. The beauty of starting over at 60 is that you know how to spend time more wisely than ever before. You no longer chase every path because you recognize that not all paths lead to joy. You no longer say yes out of guilt because you value your peace more than your reputation. You no longer postpone what your heart longs for because you see clearly that someday is not promised. Every day is a gift, and gifts are meant to be unwrapped, savored, and cherished while you have them. There is also a gentleness in how you view the passing of time. You no longer fear it as an enemy, but honor it as a teacher. Time has taught you patience, resilience, humility, and love. It has softened what once was hard, deepened what once was shallow, and illuminated what once was hidden. At 60, time is no longer something to fight against. It is something to walk with. It is not chasing you, it is guiding you. It is not diminishing you, it is refining you. And so you begin to live with a rhythm that feels sacred. You rise each day with gratitude, you walk through your hours with intention, and you rest each night with peace. You treat your time not as endless, but as enough. And in that sacred awareness, life itself becomes richer, fuller, and more radiant than you ever thought possible. Life has a way of placing things in our hands and then asking us to carry them far longer than they were ever meant to stay. A harsh word spoken decades ago, a betrayal we never saw coming, a love that slipped through our grasp, a failure that still echoes in our minds. These memories sit heavy on our spirits. We tell ourselves we are strong because we hold on, that we are loyal because we refuse to release, that we are wise because we never forget. But strength is not in holding on to everything. True strength is knowing when to let go. At 60, you have held enough. You have carried burdens that belong to others, worries that belong to yesterday, fears that never belonged to you at all. And somewhere along the way, you realize that letting go is not surrender, it is salvation. It is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is not the end of a story, it is the beginning of freedom. Letting go is not forgetting. Memory will always hold the chapters of your life, both sweet and bitter. Letting go is choosing not to let those memories hold you. It is loosening the grip of pain on your heart so that joy can enter again. It is unclenching your fists, not because what you lost didn't matter, but because holding on is tearing your spirit apart. There is courage in remembering without reliving, in honoring the past without being trapped by it. Think of all the things you once believed you could never release, the anger that seemed justified, the regret that whispered in the dark, the shame that shadowed your choices. You may have believed that clinging to these things protected you somehow, but what they did was chain you to yesterday, leaving no space for tomorrow. At 60, you see clearly. Those chains were never meant to be yours. Your soul was built for flight, not captivity. And the wings of your spirit can only spread when you let go of the weights that keep you grounded in pain. There is also a quiet beauty in letting go of people who no longer walk in rhythm with your journey. Relationships serve their seasons. Some arrive to teach you, some to challenge you, some to heal you, and some to break you open so that you may grow. Not all are meant to last forever. Letting go of those whose presence now harms more than helps is not betrayal. It is the deepest act of love for them and for yourself. You honor what you had, but you make room for what is coming. And in that act, you reclaim the power to step into your future without carrying the weight of what no longer belongs. Letting go is also about releasing the image of who you thought you should be. We all carry visions of ourselves, roles we believed we had to play, expectations we thought we had to meet. For years, you may have tried to be the perfect parent, the perfect partner, the perfect friend, the perfect worker. You wore yourself thin, trying to live up to an image that was never human to begin with. At 60, the wisdom of your years tells you this: perfection is a prison, and the key to freedom is letting go of the need to be flawless. You are not perfect, and you were never meant to be. You are real, and that is more than enough. To let go is also to forgive, not just others, but yourself. Perhaps this is the hardest of all. You replay the choices you regret, the words you wish you hadn't spoken, the opportunities you let slip by. You punish yourself with memories as if reliving them will somehow undo them. But forgiveness is not about erasing what was done. It is about freeing yourself from the burden of endless punishment. You did the best you could with what you knew then, and now you know better. Letting go means extending grace to the person you once were, so you can walk forward as the person you are becoming. There is a sacred peace that comes with release. The moment you unclench your hands, you realize they are free to hold something new. The moment you stop rehearsing the pain, you hear the music of the present. The moment you release regret, you make space for gratitude. Letting go is not losing, it is opening. It is trusting that life has more to give, that love is not over, that purpose has not expired. At 60, you begin to see letting go as a form of strength you did not have before. In youth, you clung tightly because you feared loss would destroy you. But loss did come, and though it hurt, you survived. Now you know you can release and still remain whole. You can let go and still rise. You can say goodbye and still find joy again. This knowledge is the quiet courage of age. It allows you to live lighter, freer, unburdened. Letting go also reshapes your relationship with time. You realize that clinging to the past steals moments from the present. and the present is all you truly have. Each second wasted on resentment is a second stolen from joy. Each hour spent reliving regret is an hour taken from possibility. To let go is to honor time as the sacred gift it is. It is to say, I will not waste another day carrying yesterday. I choose today, I choose now. And so, letting go becomes a practice of love. Love for yourself because you deserve peace. Love for others because holding on to resentment keeps them chained as well. Love for life because you recognize that every ending makes space for a new beginning. At 60, this act of release is not about loss. It is about gain. You gain space, you gain clarity, you gain freedom, you gain the lightness to step into the next chapter unshackled and unafraid. There is no shame in having held on so long. We all do. We all believe for a time that holding on is proof of strength, but the truth is revealed only later. Strength is in the release. The power of letting go is the power to begin again. It is the power to reclaim joy, to rediscover yourself, to welcome the beauty of what has yet to arrive. And when you stand at 60, hands open, heart free, spirit light, you realize that letting go was never about losing. It was always about making space for the life you were always meant to live. For so much of life, success is handed to us like a script. It is measured in the size of the house, the shine of the car, the number of promotions, the digits in the bank account. We are told that success means climbing higher, running faster, earning more, collecting titles that glitter but do not glow. And for decades, many of us follow this script faithfully, believing that one day it will deliver us to fulfillment. But then 60 arrives, and something profound happens. You realize that the script was never written with your soul in mind, and you finally find the courage to rewrite it. At 60, success looks different. It is not about proving anything to anyone. It is not about collecting trophies that will gather dust. It is not about winning races that no longer matter. Success becomes deeply personal, intimate, and sacred. It is defined not by the eyes watching from outside, but by the peace resting quietly within. You realize that true success has little to do with applause and everything to do with alignment. Alignment between your choices and your truth, between your days and your heart. You may look back on times when you achieved what the world celebrated, yet felt strangely empty inside. Perhaps you got the promotion but lost your health, or earned the money but lost the joy of your days. Those victories, though impressive, did not nourish you. At 60, you no longer wish to sacrifice your soul at the altar of appearance. You long for a success that allows you to breathe, to laugh, to sleep peacefully at night. You long for a success that feels like home. Redefining success means honoring the things that once seemed small, but now reveal themselves as treasures. Waking up without dread pressing against your chest, sitting at a table with people who see and love you, having the strength to walk, the clarity to think, the freedom to choose. These things may not earn applause from the world, but they are the currency of a life well lived. And at 60, you are wise enough to know that they matter more than anything else. This new definition of success is also about presence. In youth, success often means striving, always reaching for what is just beyond your grasp. You live in a constant state of not yet, always chasing the next milestone. But at 60, you understand that if success is always ahead of you, you will never arrive. You begin to measure success not by where you are going, but by how deeply you are living right now. Success is not out there, it is here. It is the laughter you share, the gratitude you feel, the peace you cultivate. It is not the next chapter, it is the line you are writing in this moment. Redefining success also means giving yourself permission to change direction. Perhaps you spent decades in one career, one role, one version of yourself, and now your heart longs for something new. Success does not mean clinging to what no longer fits. It means daring to pivot, daring to reinvent, daring to begin again. At 60, you have nothing to prove and everything to gain. You know now that success is not about how straight the path is. It is about how true it feels beneath your feet. And what about failure? In the world's eyes, failure is the opposite of success. But with age comes the wisdom to see that failure is not the enemy, it is the teacher. The mistakes you made, the risks that didn't work out, the dreams that fell apart, these were not detours from success. They were part of it. They refined you, deepened you, made you wiser. Redefining success means no longer fearing failure, but embracing it as part of the journey. Every scar becomes a medal, every stumble a step forward. This new vision of success also liberates you from comparison. When you were younger, it was easy to measure yourself against others, to feel behind, inadequate, less than. But at 60, you realize that every path is unique. Some bloom early, some bloom late, some bloom again and again. There is no race, no scoreboard, no universal timeline. Redefining success means saying, my life is mine, my pace is mine, my victories are mine. It means stepping out of the shadow of comparison and into the light of your own truth. Imagine the peace that comes when you no longer chase someone else's definition of success. Imagine waking each day and asking, what matters to me? Imagine measuring your life not in trophies, but in moments of joy, in breaths of gratitude, in nights of rest, in mornings of possibility. That is the gift of 60, the chance to live a definition of success that fits your soul like a second skin. And in this freedom, something beautiful happens. You become more generous. Because when success is no longer about proving yourself, it becomes about uplifting others. You find joy in mentoring, in sharing your story, in helping others rise. Your success becomes less about accumulation and more about contribution. And in that giving, you discover a richness that no paycheck could ever buy. This redefinition also softens your relationship with time. You no longer measure success in decades of achievement, but in days well lived. One day of peace can feel more successful than a decade of striving. One conversation of truth can feel more successful than a lifetime of small talk. One act of kindness can feel more successful than any award. Time, when seen through the lens of wisdom, magnifies the meaning of success. So at 60, you begin again with a definition that belongs only to you. Success is waking with gratitude. Success is walking in authenticity. Success is letting go of what no longer serves you. Success is love in your heart, peace in your spirit, and joy in your steps. And once you taste this kind of success, you will never again settle for the hollow version the world once tried to sell you. You will live lighter, freer, truer. Because now you know success is not what you earn, it is how you live. There is a lie that whispers softly in the ears of those who grow older. It says, love belongs to the young, that purpose belongs to those still climbing, that passion belongs to those whose steps are quick and whose faces are unlined. It says at a certain age, you must settle into the shadows, grow quiet, and let life pass you by. But at 60, with the clarity of a heart that has endured, you know this whisper is nothing more than fear dressed in falsehood, because love has no age and purpose has no expiration date. Love is not confined to the blush of youth or the fire of early passion. Love deepens with time, it ripens with experience, it becomes more tender with age. At 60, love is no longer about the urgency to be chosen, it is about the freedom to choose. It is not about the performance of perfection, it is about the comfort of presence. Love at 60 is the laughter that lingers in quiet kitchens, the hand that still reaches for yours in the dark, the smile that says, "I see you," without a word. It is the gentle knowing that you do not have to be flawless to be cherished, that you do not have to pretend to be someone else to be held. And love does not only live in romance, love expands. It stretches into friendships that stand the test of time, into children who have grown but never outgrown your embrace, into grandchildren who carry pieces of your spirit into the future. It lives in neighbors, in communities, in strangers who become family through kindness. At 60, you understand love not as a possession, but as a flow, a current that moves through you and connects you to the world. You are both the giver and the receiver, the well and the drink, the story and the song. But love also begins with yourself. Perhaps for decades you poured into everyone else until your own spirit felt dry. At 60, you are invited to fall in love with yourself again, to care for your body not because it is perfect, but because it carries you, to honor your heart not because it never broke, but because it healed, to cherish your mind not because it knows everything, but because it still wonders. This love for yourself becomes the foundation for all other love. And when you live with this kind of tenderness toward yourself, you radiate a light that touches everyone around you. Then there is purpose. For too long, we have been told that purpose is tied to careers, to accomplishments, to building and striving. But what happens when the career ends, when the striving quiets, when the building is done? Too many believe that purpose ends as well. But the truth is, purpose shifts. It does not vanish. Purpose is not tied to youth. It is tied to breath. As long as you are breathing, your life carries meaning and your days carry possibility. At 60, purpose may look different than it did at 20 or 30, but it is no less powerful. Purpose may be in the wisdom you pass down to others, in the art you finally have the courage to create, in the stories you tell that will outlive you. It may be in nurturing gardens, in rocking babies, in teaching hands younger than yours how to hold steady. Purpose is not about scale, it is about sincerity. A kind word can carry as much purpose as a grand achievement. A life touched is a legacy built. When you redefine purpose in this way, life opens up again. You no longer ask, "Am I too old?" But instead, "What is mine to do now?" You no longer see the years behind you as wasted, but as preparation. Every heartbreak, every lesson, every triumph, every tear, each was shaping you for this season of purpose. At 60, you realize you are not winding down. You are stepping into a chapter where purpose is no longer tangled with ego, where it is pure, clear, and deeply human. The beauty of love and purpose is that they feed one another. When you live with purpose, your love grows deeper because you feel connected to something beyond yourself. When you love fully, your purpose becomes richer because it flows from a place of genuine care. Together, they form the heartbeat of a life well lived. There are those who will tell you that it is too late to fall in love again, too late to pursue a dream, too late to start anew. But the truth is, too late is only a concept invented by those who fear possibility. As long as the sun rises for you, as long as breath moves in and out of your lungs, it is never too late. You may fall in love again at 60, at 70, at 80. You may paint your first canvas, write your first book, learn your first dance steps. You may still surprise yourself with the joy of beginning again. Love and purpose are not about age, they are about spirit. And spirit does not wrinkle, it does not tire, it does not fade. Spirit is eternal, and it continues to reach, to grow, to give, no matter the number on your years. At 60, you carry the blessing of perspective. You know what matters and what does not. You know that love is not measured by grand gestures, but by quiet consistency. You know that purpose is not measured by applause, but by impact. This knowledge frees you to live more authentically, to give more generously, to love more fearlessly. When you stand in this truth, you become an example to others. Younger generations look at you and see that love is not limited, that purpose is not bound, that aging is not decline, but evolution. You teach them by your very being that the fire of the human spirit never burns out. It only burns brighter with wisdom. So when 60 arrives, it does not bring an ending. It brings an invitation to love more deeply than ever before, to live with purpose unburdened by pretense, to embrace every moment as a chance to begin again. You are not finished. You are not diminished. You are alive. And that is proof enough that love and purpose are still yours to claim, to embody, to share. So let the world say what it will, because the truth is this: 60 is not too late. 60 is right on time. This is the perfect moment to turn the page, to rewrite your destiny, to rise into the fullness of who you are meant to be. Life is not asking you to slow down. Life is asking you to start living fully, freely, and fearlessly. And if you dare, 60 will not be your ending. It will be the most radiant beginning you have ever